friends, the DigiU project is here. Project CTO Petr and Petr Tagunov, Chief Technical Officer, is with us today. Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about artificial intelligence, about Peter's team, about the achievements, about the results of the Peter's team, what they have achieved. They are going to talk about predictive analytics, neural networks. We're going to talk about the models that we were building. And actually, in the first part of our webinar today, I suggest that we all celebrate once again the patent on speech cloning technology. Peter, correct me if I'm calling it incorrectly, but in general, I congratulate all of us, and you in particular, on getting this patent, and it's a great achievement of our ecosystem. We are delighted about it. Congratulations, Peter. Thank you. Yes, cloning technology is the most correct name because it allows you to duplicate both the tempo and the intonation and speed of speech. So cloning is the most accurate name for this technology. That's great. Well, I think you've already seen the patent and we've put it on our social networks and official channels, and it's a really great achievement. Today we're going to talk about, I think we will remind our viewers and partners what your team is doing now and what results we've achieved. Let's start with in which artificial intelligence field or near AI fields we are working. Well, it's not around artificial intelligence. Yes, it's one of the mainstream areas of artificial intelligence at the moment, predictive analytics. It's the ability to actually predict the future. Whoever knows the future owns the world. Here, we started working on it last year as the suggestion of our founders, and we started with predicting range markets. Range markets are markets which are moving in a relatively small range and don't have distinct trends. And it seemed to us, because of this, it's possible to predict them with a good accuracy. Well, our studies and work have confirmed this hypothesis. Indeed, in range markets such as wrapped GBTC, Bitcoin, BTC, such models, and an ensemble of such models approaches, it shows a prediction accuracy of over 90%. We didn't achieve this immediately. We started with statistical models, classic, I would say, for data science. Then we moved on to a variety of hybrid techniques, and as a result, we've got this accuracy. The result that is this accurate is actually predicting prices in a short time range, but it is a very, very high probability. So it would seem, yes, that we had success. But pretty quickly big players came into these markets that weren't there when we started this work. Wait, let me now translate what you are saying, because I'm not sure that anyone understands it but me, and I understand it because we were just preparing for this webinar and I was trying to figure out all the details of the tasks that Peter is solving. And so what you might have heard here now, firstly, we've actually engaged in predicting the future thanks to Peter and his team, and predicting the future, as you said, the one who knows it, the future, owns the world. Owns the world. I suggest to remember this phrase. And next, the accuracy of Peter's predictive models reaches, well, we've got over 95%. In some samples, over 95%. I'd say generally we get over 90%. Over 90% is the accuracy of the predictive models developed by Peter's team. I would also like to note that it's a really remarkable result to predict the future with 95% probability, which speaks for the high professionalism of Peter as a technical director of the team he leads, and in fact, it speaks of how close we seem to be to run the world. Yes, Petr? Well, I'm joking now, but overall, having a technology solution that predicts the future with such precision is a significant contribution to our ecosystem. Well, now let's try to move on from accuracy of these predictive models to how this accuracy has been achieved. I mean, probably not everyone can do this, or it's open to everyone. I mean, we are in the office at Novosibirsk Technopark right now, and Peter's team is based here. And this is where all these miracles happen. Petr, how did you achieve 95% accuracy in such a short period of time? What was used? Maybe some management techniques? Or I don't know? Yes, well, my colleagues and I discuss this all the time. When the problem is solved, it does look very simple. You just know that you have to take this data, get these features from this data, train the model in this way, and then you get the results. But yes, I always point out to my colleagues, and they see it themselves, that in fact, while you are on your way to solving a problem, it's absolutely unclear what and how you should do and what you will end up with. In working on our model, we actually did a lot of research and went through a lot of data. In that sense, just working with blockchain, centralized and decentralized exchanges has helped us a lot, because there is a large volume of well-ordered, structured, often unchangeable data, and of course a lot of work has been done to isolate the factors important to us from this huge flow of data. That is what we need to rely on when making predictions. These are actually the model's features. We've studied more than 100 factors and finally chose more than 20 of the most important ones. These range, of course, from the price of assets at the previous moment in time from a minute. We've studied more than 100 factors and finally chose more than 20 of the most important ones. These range, of course, from the price of assets at the previous moment in time from a minute and a larger frame to a week. And it's the price of related assets that exist in close proximity to our price prediction, various market movements, volumes, technical indicators, classical indicators coming from statistics, and this entire complex of features has been analyzed and added into the models to make them show their predictive power. Well, that's more than a comprehensive answer in terms of specific details. I recommend everyone who heard new words to be sure to Google and study them, and you will obviously learn a lot of new things. You've already started to say that actually the accuracy of the prediction itself is not always directly related to the fact that this model can earn. So let's move on to what you mean. That is, I roughly understand what you mean. In the markets in which these models work, prediction accuracy alone is not enough to be able to earn, actually make money, to take the money from the market. Yes, but all in the end of our work, it turned out that from an academic point of view, from a scientific point of view, we were successful. But from an economic point of view, from a financial point of view, we were stuck with the fact that when we actually achieved this accuracy of the model, it was half a year later or a little less of our work, in the markets we studied, we were ready to trade, we went to the market with our robots, some big, but well, actually we assume multifunctional players, like Morgan Stanley level or maybe something like that, with billions of dollars apparently. Yes, and as a result, they didn't give us the opportunity to make money because they set a very, very narrow range of the price fluctuation in the range markets. They can do that because centralized exchanges, it's where we did all this work, the amount of commission taken from the exchange depends on how much money you are willing to provide. Like if you provide £1 billion there, the commission you get will almost be zero. And you can make money even in case of a very slight market fluctuation. So actually, when DigiU will have $1 billion as a deposit, deposit, then we will be able to use this model even in such situation with these big players, and it will bring profit, which we will all would like to have. Until then, we will have to put this model aside and wait for its time to come. Great, here again it will work remembering this and understanding that the fact that the competitors of our model in the real world are institutional funds similar to Morgan Stanley and firms like that. And for me, as a CEO of the project, it's also a very telling factor that we are essentially in the same market and differ in many ways only in the amount of capital which is managed by other players. And this is very strongly motivating. Firstly, to increase this capital, and secondly, we are really moving in the right direction. And as far as I'm concerned, having really great results, and we've moved on. Yeah, having understood that, we have moved on. We actually asked ourselves a question on which markets the actual influence of money of these institutional players is significantly less. But actually, the models that we could develop would be just as accurate and successful, and we could enter these markets with our robots and successfully make money. In fact, we analyzed all the markets which are available at the centralized Binance exchange, for example. We looked at all the possible symbols and pairs and built correlations matrices that could show movements of some assets and how they depend on other assets. And it doesn't fall under the pressure of such institutional players. But as a result, we selected 20 base pairs of such markets and tried to apply those models that we had on the range markets. So, we realized that these models are not sufficient for these markets, which means that we should apply more complicated methods, and it is really necessary to reanalyze the data which we had at our hands, to identify from them the important factors. Well, as it turned out, in fact, not from scratch, the work that has been done, the groundwork, it has been successfully reused, rather in our further work. Well, actually, we've started to move to more and more complex models, architectures, and in fact, again, came to the cutting edge in this sense of these models, to deep learning and to the last variations of neural networks in our direction, and as a result actually also gradually began to increase their accuracy from about 60% to about 80% in non-band trend markets. Well, 80% accuracy of this model means that in 4 out of 5 cases we will earn. To sum it up simply. So actually, we now test our models on the markets, but we'll share the results a little later. I don't even think there is much to explain. 4 out of 5 times we're making money. That's great, but maybe we should try to go into a little more details there about the testing process. Can we say something about the testing process? Our users, our community is in a certain context. They understand what testing is, and maybe it would be interesting to know. They understand AVA alpha testing, they take it and help to improve the project. And what is testing in your models? What is it? What can you tell about it, just in general, simple words? Well, I would say there are big nuances for these approaches and models. Deep learning is always a lot of capacity and a lot of hardware in general, I would say. How much data you have and the neural models themselves are happily eating the GPU powers. Well, in simple terms, a video card. Here, a video card is not only related to mining, oddly enough, but for me, more to do with machine learning. The testing process is that the model is is continuously running on all these markets. It actually tries to trade this robot, and at the end of its test trading actually simulating trading, where, or indeed, test traders the market gives its feedback. In fact, there you have earned or you have not earned it all by the robot itself in automatic mode. But us, this testing consists of the fact that the experts monitor the work of the robot constantly. Adding some features is a significant factor too. The big problem with the same neural networks is that in case of big market movements, either up or down, the robot may do very strange things. For example, we, among others, are struggling with this so that the robot would behave steadily during any market movements, and accordingly it would not need to be constantly monitored. And we are already turning this model into an industrial solution from a test sample. That's great, but the process of testing itself, in terms of time, does it have cycles, or how long do you expect it to last? I get it. Even if you take all of our activities, how would we get to actually quickly build, train, and test and bring the model to working version, when we would say, yes, that's it, now it works. But it turned out to be actually a time-consuming activity, and the whole process of testing actually, up to training, fine-tuning such models is a month's work. There may be a little less than a 6-month cycle, probably quarter, 3-month cycles in general. But the daily work looks like that. You load the data, but it actually pulls it up and you look at the current accuracy and make the hypothesis. You make hypothesis that if you add these factors, your model will then become more accurate. Or if you add those factors, then it becomes more stable. And it's an ongoing process. It's a bit like a science lab, I suppose. You try to use a pipette to drop a reagent and watch your organism multiply. That's probably what the process looks like in my head. In my mind, it looks like that, because, well, in any case, this is a research process, and it always involves white coats and hats. I think there are some technical points, parameters for today's meetings that are probably more than enough for us and for our audience. This, in any case, interested in some kind of applied questions. And what does it give me as a result? Well, I always ask myself this question, and I recommend that everyone asks those models and robots and how all these might affect our partners, our investors, and the community we have formed. Will they see new product? Will they see part of the new product? You, as the main inspirer of this research, how do you see this going forward? Well, I actually plan. Yes, I see the result of our work. It should be these industrial robots in virtual space, which will enter the ecosystem or as part of the Wells platform products and will complement in terms of efficiency of using Wells and funds and additional income for those who participate actually in the wealth product. Industrial robots, here it makes sense to explain it differently. What exactly does that mean? Industrial robots. I think a lot of people could imagine a conveyor belt and industrial robots assembling something. Well, actually for us it means hosting in the data center, in the infrastructure that we have, software and hardware programs and services that interact with each other, with the outside world. We actually make sales on centralized and decentralized exchanges, and the result of this work is actually transferred to wealth, which means that it's all software products, we don't have a physical implementation. Yes, that's important to understand. Great. That is, it's a part of wealth profitability, which is in the future we plan to increase at the expense of such developments. We are often asked by different partners whether your developments will be expressed in the form of a trade-in robot, which people can install on their computers and earn money without transferring money into trust management. On the one hand, our latest models, which we believe are the closest to the industrial application, that is, they work only on server farms, they consume a lot of different GPUs. Yes, if it would be a labor-intensive to put it at home, on a computer, or even on a retent server, you need a cluster farm. Here I think that, yes, it's theoretically possible, but let us assume that not in the near future, that is. While this labor-intensive, as I said, so hardware and on the configuration of support, that is, while for this robot to function successfully, developing over time, yes, showing positive constant dynamics, it must also be supported. So, in the near future, I think no. But in the future, some future, perhaps, in theory, we could realize such a thing and make it possible, the ultimate application point. So, I think this is more than a comprehensive answer to these questions. That is very often heard in our community. Here, and in fact, as a tradition, Peter, our audience is used to some wisdom from you. Any advice on what you came up with in our last meeting? The research process? What wise thoughts it led you to share with our community? Wise thoughts? Well, actually working with predictive analytics and not just with the pitch form of our founders, with the DeFi ecosystem, with blockchain in general, I would say that a huge stream of information is pouring out at us from all sides. Of course, you need to constantly assimilate this information, digest it, just to avoid being left out of life, to avoid becoming a dinosaur. In many ways, it's more of a digital dinosaur for the current world, or our realities. A lot of different digital products are appearing, and I don't really urge to try and use them all, but to get acquainted with them, a wide range of possibilities which the current world offers. So, in my opinion, it's interesting to look at blockchain even from a consumer perspective, to look at DeFi ecosystem, DEX platforms, to look at NFT and GameFi. These are areas that are not only developing by leaps and bounds in terms of capitalization and products that are emerging, and in my opinion, it's just interesting. Mind and brain workout. And maybe you'll discover something new about this world, and maybe you'll buy yourself some digital Pokemon, which tomorrow will cost 100 times more. Well done, Peter. Thank you very much for the advice. And just to summarize, it's indeed worth training your brain, your mind, for the skills. To be more exact, you have to train your mind and your brain to be able to notice a wide range of possibilities and to be able to explore this information, which appears in the world today in huge volumes, and to be able to perceive it and find new opportunities in it. So, share this information. Tell it to your friends, become partners or investors in DigiU ecosystem. And everyone, all the best and goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.